Hey, everybody, welcome to the Young Bulls podcast. This is your host, Jackson St. Amant. I'm a financial coach here out in California. Run a business called Money Mastermind, and this podcast here, Young Bulls. Today, I have a good friend with me, Brandon Koehne. He is a 22-year-old from San Jose, California. He's been a realtor with Keller Williams since October 2016, graduated in 2015, same as me, which means he jumped straight into entrepreneurship. He's been an entrepreneur at heart, and he's studying for his AA in business. Brandon, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm super excited to be on your first episode of this podcast. I totally believe in everything you're doing, and we're very similar. So I think this is going to be a really exciting episode for everyone.
Definitely, man. I am super excited myself. When I had the idea to make this, you were the first person that popped into my head to come on. We just, so
Yeah.
the listeners know, Brandon and I met back on LinkedIn, a couple months ago.
A couple months ago, yeah.
Cross circles and really hit it off, and we were gonna meet up for coffee, weren't we? But
Tried, but
yeah, something got in the way. But that won't stop us. Well,
no.
well. Anyways, man, tell the listeners. I know a bit about you, but tell the listeners a bit more about yourself. Who is Brandon Koehne?
Okay, yeah. So I was born and raised in San Jose, California. I'm 22, as you said. And growing up, I've always loved. And as as a young kid, a lot of people did this selling lemonade or in yard sales. And I
Mm-hmm.
loved it. I love selling. I love, making the profit. And that led into me going into middle school, is where I business, where I was selling soda and candy and chips out of my locker in middle school in sixth grade. Because I
Yeah.
could, I saw at the store you could buy this 12 pack of soda for $5-6, and you can sell them for 12, and that just made sense. I'm a numbers guy as well, so and you
I
could
love
buy
it.
a big thing of chips, sell them for a profit, and that's what I always did in middle school, and then throughout high school I did it as well, and that's how I made money. I didn't really get a job till later. I would say junior year in high school is
Nice.
when I started a real job. I didn't
Mhm.
really need a job, but parents told me, so I got a job.
Yeah,
Uh,
that is so funny.
and
I remember, I think I told you this when we connected off air, when I was in middle school too. And Brandon and I, by the way, did not know each other existed back then at all.
yeah,
But we were, for some reason, living identical lives because in middle school, I seriously, on my walk to school, there was a little convenience store, and I would stop in, get a couple big bags of you remember the caramel apple pops?
yep, yep,
Yup. Talk about candy. I never did soda though. But
yeah.
everyone at my middle school is crazy about caramel apple pops for some reason.
I remember buying a couple of those.
Yep, dude. And almost everyone when you're middle school, you have a dollar bill or two on you,
Yep, yep,
and no judgment of how to spend that dollar bill. So boom, caramel apple pop.
yep.
I'll take it. Made a killing. That's crazy, man. So after that, after high school, you said what was your first real job that you jumped into?
So my first job when I was 16, junior year of high school, was I was actually a bag boy at a local grocery store here.
Respect.
So I was learning customer, um, but I was the bottom person on the team. So I was cleaning the bathrooms and doing all the things you don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I transferred out of that really quickly. I was only there 2-3 months, and I jumped
Oh,
straight
good
into
for you.
security. Uh,
Okay.
which was a really good paying job at the time. I was getting 18 an hour as a 18-year-old, and so that was nice. I had no experience in security or anything, but once again, another customer service job. Um, it was pretty cool though because I was actually able to work for the Apple, where all the employees work at. So
Oh, no
I got to
way.
go into all of like the main campus. Um, and
Yeah.
right before I got out of security, I was actually able to see the Apple spaceship, um, and before it was done. So this
Wow.
was a little while back, but it
No
was really
way.
cool. But the thing about security is it's super boring. But that's why they pay you so much, because
Fair.
no one wants to do it.
To make you show
Uh,
up. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
so it was a learning experience. But I had a super flexible schedule, so I loved it. I pretty much called in whenever I wanted to work.
Right.
And at this time, I started going to community college, so I had school Monday through Friday, and so I pretty much just worked Friday, Saturday, sometimes Sunday, and
Mm-hmm.
just like when there wasn't football on, of course. And yeah, I just did that, 2, 3 times a week, and sometimes it was 12-hour shifts, but hey, you make it, time and a half,
Right.
12-hour
Right.
shift. So
Yeah, that's so crazy,
yeah,
man. Just to add on to the similarities, I too went to community college, worked on the weekends part time, and my first real job was also at a grocery store, doing washing dishes, which is so crazy, man. All the
yeah,
serendipities. So, from
yeah.
security, did you jump straight into real estate from there, or is there another puzzle piece?
Yeah, so pretty much what happened is doing the security, I hated it, and it was just like I don't want to spend the rest of my life doing this.
Right.
And it was just I was tired of it. So,
It's not what you
anyways,
wanted to retire from.
no,
Right.
it was not what I wanted to do.
Gotcha.
So plus I was told what to do, and I don't really like that much.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so anyways, studying for my AA in at West Valley for business. I'm still studying for it, so you can tell I'm doing it pretty slowly, one
Yeah.
class at a time. But back
Everyone
then I
goes
was
at their
taking
own
it.
pace. It's all good.
Yeah, back then I was taking 5 or 6 classes at a time, and actually I ended up meeting a girl who's actually my girlfriend now, four and a
Congratulations.
half 4.5 years now, which is still crazy to me even think about that.
Wow.
Um,
That never happens with people our age anymore. It feels
no,
like, or
no,
you
it's
guys got
it's
to get
weird.
married.
Yeah,
Just
that's what
kidding.
everyone keeps telling me. That's what everyone keeps telling me. They're
Uh,
asking when the wedding is. But
yeah.
anyways, she was actually working in real estate, and her mom was actually she's been working in real estate her whole life. Her mom, when she turned 18, she got a real estate license that exact day on her birthday.
Got
So
it.
she was super motivated. She was an immigrant, so the immigrant edge is a real thing,
Yeah, cool.
because
Where from?
she was actually in Lebanon. So it's a really interesting story. I won't go down too far on that, but
Yeah,
she
of course.
came here when she was young and got a real estate license. And then so my girlfriend, not at the time, but when I met her, she got her license right when she was 18.
Nice.
And so I was looking at her like, wow, you have your real estate license, you're selling houses, and you're 18 years old. Like, what is going on here? And I was 18 at the time. I got to do something.
Mm-hmm.
So we became friends, obviously. And she's like, just get your real estate license. And I was like, okay, why not? Like, I didn't really, you know, it's funny because when I was a kid, I always went through open houses to get the cookies and stuff, and get the free water
Of
because that's just
course.
how I am. Uh,
Yeah,
and
to go resell, right? You had your
yeah,
group of friends
exactly.
outside.
So, anyways, I was doing that when I was little, but so I always saw real estate as really a really cool opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
because I always saw the realtors driving the nice cars. It's always the general idea people think of them.
Right.
It's not really how it always is, but it's kind of something people like.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
I get it. And there's no
but
shame in that.
anyways,
And when you're a
uh,
kid, you don't know any better either, too. You
yeah,
think, oh,
yeah.
that's nicer than what other people have, therefore it must be better. You know?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. But anyways, there's a lot of different routes you can go down with a real estate license. There's property management, commercial, residential, a list
Mm-hmm.
of other things. But she was doing residential, and so I ended up getting my license in 2016. And I was doing an internship at the time for one of the realtors in that office because we just started dating, so we didn't really want to work together at first because you never know. If you break
Fair.
up, there's a lot of stuff that has to, be fixed.
I would say
So
that was wise. Yeah.
yeah, didn't want to combine that at first. So I learned a lot. jumped straight into the internship. Left my security job, which was a pretty scary jump for me, because it's
Mm-hmm.
going from 18 an hour to, I took way less money. It was like 12.50 an hour to be an intern. And
Right.
I didn't know what I was doing. I was kind of just doing intern work. And then once that internship ended, I jumped straight in. Uh, and that was really scary too, because that's commission based only. You're not getting paid hourly.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Oh
but
yeah.
what I've learned is you burn the bridges behind you, and you don't have a choice. That was kind of my mentality when I did it,
Yeah.
and it was tough at first. Honestly, it was really tough at first.
I
But
bet.
I made it work. You have up and down days, just as life and just as business, and I am really, really, really happy I made that switch,
Yeah.
because I don't know where I'd be today, if I didn't do that.
Yeah, good for you, man. That's absolutely beautiful, and a lot of what you said completely resonated with me. Because I was in a similar position work-wise, and that jump, man, I remember because I did insurance is my
Yep.
background, and I just finished actually. March was my last month of
Awesome.
a little bit over a year in the insurance industry, and I remember leaving that, like, you have those issues with, like, oh, I don't want to answer to my boss. I want to set my own schedule. I don't like this
Yeah.
corporate structure, right? But at the same time, with that comes the security of hourly paycheck. You can
Yep.
more or less
Exactly.
project, unless you lose your job or aren't
Yeah.
able to work for some reason, then it's a lot more secure than someone who's 100% commission. And insurance was the same way. I remember,
Yeah.
and I interviewed with the people in Keller Williams. This was up in Oregon where I was living at the time in Eugene. But I was
Nice.
considering, okay, do I go insurance or do I go real estate? Because I knew I wanted sales skills and I wanted, like, business skills, but not having to create my own brand yet. Being able to have the luxury of, like, drawing from a reputable brand,
Right.
while you're learning those skills. Because sales and business is hard stuff. It really is.
Yep.
But
Yep.
congratulations. I'm happy for you that you made that switch. And that was so. Was that back in October of 2016 then? Because that's when it says on LinkedIn you started with Keller Williams.
Yeah. So that was just right when that's right when I ended my internship, and I just started to become commission based, and
Wow.
it was definitely scary. I will tell you that. I didn't
Yeah.
know, because you don't know what the future holds, and let's try it. Why not?
Right.
Um, gonna sit around the rest of my life doing hourly paychecks. You know, I wanna get paid for my skills and my performance, not my time. And I think
Yeah.
that's a huge thing for me.
Definitely. And I love that you bring that up because that's one of my biggest beliefs is the relationship that we have between our time and our money.
Yep.
And I think that the most common trap that people fall in is thinking that the only way of doing things is directly exchanging your time for money,
Yeah.
right? Active
Exactly.
income, working
Yeah.
a full time 40 hours a week at, say, $20 an hour gets you X after taxes, right?
Yep.
But it's not the only way of making money, and it's not stressed enough, at least in my opinion, in society. And I love that
Right.
both you and I have kind of found that world of, there is another way. Let's go
Yeah.
out and create it. I think that is super cool, super cool. Awesome. So once you're in real estate, it's been what, like 3.5, 4 years now, if it was
Yeah.
in.
It's my fourth year, so we're gonna come up on year number 4 in October. So I gotta
uh,
actually have to renew my license every 4 years. So
all right, you do your
year.
continuing
So
education.
that's kind of it's interesting, because I never really thought about it. It's like, so 4 years so long, and it's like, wow, it's already happening.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, 4 years this year.
Wow, wow, that's awesome. So, what are some of the highlights you would say of that career so far? Once the internship ended, October 2016 till now, what are some of the biggest moments that you're proud of?
Oh man, that's a good question. I would say obviously my first sale was the coolest thing that I ever did.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
because especially in real estate, before you have a sale, you think it's impossible. You
Mm-hmm.
think there's no way I'm going to sell a house, and your limiting mindset is, okay, I just need to get one sale. And it's like, what our beliefs really should be is, oh, let me get 10 sales this year. If I end up with five, that's better than none.
Right.
But it's just, oh, I just want one. I just want one.
Yeah.
And so it was really tough for me at first because I was only trying to find one deal. And just so everyone that's listening, do not try to do that. It's not the best way to go about things. Try to, have an abundance of things, so you can actually choose who you want to work with, not the other way around.
That's a good
So,
lesson.
anyways, yeah. So, anyways, down the road, I got my first listing, which is actually a little more difficult than getting a buyer.
Mm.
Um, and it was all through networking, and it's ever since that day it has literally changed everything that I do, and how I get clients, and
Nice.
everything that I've ever done has changed because of that specific thing. Because before I started doing that, I didn't know what to do. Realtors do open houses, they go knock on doors. You know,
Right.
you try to find those things that that other realtors do and become successful at. But at 18 years old, 19 years old, it's kind of hard for someone to trust you with $1 million home,
Of
uh,
course.
to sell when there's all these 40, 50, 60 year olds who've been doing it 20, 30 years.
Oh yeah. Oh
Why
yeah.
should I trust a guy that's 19, 1 year in? Why would I do that?
Right.
So that was my limiting belief holding me back for so long, until I was on this networking app. I talked to someone. He said, "Oh yeah, I know someone who's thinking about selling their house," and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is awesome." He's
Yeah.
like, "Yeah,
It's
connect
happening.
me with him. Let's do this."
Yeah.
And so I hopped on the phone call with him, the seller, and I was the most nervous I've ever been in my life. Maybe as nervous as I was taking my real estate license test, probably
Palm
somewhere around
sweaty.
there, or taking your uh, driver's license test, something like that.
Right.
Where it's really you don't know what you're doing, never done it before. Like, this is scary.
Mm-hmm.
And my heart was racing, palm sweaty, and just I got through the call. It ended up being really well. Met him that week. Got out there, signed the contract, got it sold within a week, and it was like euphoria when that happened. And then you see
Yeah.
the check, and you're like, wow, you can make this much money just doing that. And so, so
All at
I,
once too. Right.
yeah, I know. So it's yeah, real estate's interesting, but I do got to say it makes budgeting a lot different, than having
Oh yeah.
a steady petty check,
I'm
as you probably know.
I'm glad you brought that up. That I'm looking down at my notebook, and that's one of the next questions. Actually, let's just segue in. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, might as well. How do you keep a budget? At least and what's your experience has been? Because this is totally up my alley, obviously. But like
Yep.
when you don't have that consistent income to rely on, what tools and what ways have you found that work for you to sort of like still manage your money, just hoping some of it comes in, and then what do you do, say, when you in real estate? I know your commission checks can be huge, big, way
Yeah.
bigger than insurance. So like what are you doing to not, buy a nice BMW with that every time you get a big check too? You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. State and other commission based jobs, but yeah, people go out and buy watches, cars, whatever makes them feel good, and it's sad to see because it's really not what we should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I budget is I've always had a budget my whole life, just because that's how I am.
Good for
I'm
you.
just a numbers guy, like you, and it's always helped me. I've always understood money. I've always understood numbers. And the one thing I always understood, as long as I can have more than I owe, or have any bills coming in, then I'm okay. and
Got it.
just fight for the next day, fight for the next day, fight for the next day. It's gonna happen, And
Right.
early on, that's how it was, because you don't make money for the first 3 6 months because you have to learn all these new skills and
Mm-hmm.
try to get a contract signed, which is pretty difficult at
How
first.
long was it, would you say, since from when you started officially with Keller Williams to when you closed your first deal?
It was about so which is pretty typical in real estate. What they tell you is 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
So I guess I was on the further side of that spectrum, but yeah,
Right.
it's not a instant gratification because first of all, you have to get the contract signed, you have to prepare the home, you have to sell the home, and then 30 days later it closes. So it's
Right.
it's it's a long, it's a long
Yeah. No,
time.
I would say honestly, at 6 months, you probably, and with some people, there's probably people that take longer too. You know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And like it's just kind of the part of the industry. I remember experiencing this a lot with insurance. I don't think I sold my first insurance policy until 5 months in, and there's
yeah,
not nearly as many moving parts. It's just what's your
yeah,
information, sign here, sign here, sign here. Just filling out
yeah,
a contract with an individual.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But what else I do is when I get a paycheck is I have enough for my savings. I tried, at least 10% straight to the savings. And that's just, building up for whatever house or whatever I'm saving up for. Um, and then any investments that I'm doing, any stocks, bonds, ETFs, stuff like that, I want to fill that. Um, and then
Got it.
everything else, pretty much I go to paid. Um,
Nice. So
everything else.
when you sit down at the beginning of the month to budget, do you say, okay, based on your projections, like I mean, you can look at your business pipeline, right? And think
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
okay, maybe in the first or second week of this month, I'll probably close that deal.
right.
Do you take that money into account when you budget?
Yeah, I do, but I take it with a grain of salt because,
Mm-hmm.
especially when in real estate, anything can happen. So even if you get into contract, I mean, usually it's a 30-day close, but
Right.
really the buyer or seller can back out at any time until that home, everything's signed, everything's done. I don't really, put it into the numbers just quite yet. Um,
Yeah.
so I do take it with a grain of salt, but I definitely, I use a projected, budget and then an actual budget. Is kind of what I do. Um,
Yeah, no, that's a smart way of doing it. And that's one of the ways I run my personal budget too. But the reason
yeah,
why I ask you that is because it's a super common question I get with my clients. Because most of them don't have stable incomes and they're working either a commission position or they have their own
yeah,
business and income flow, whatever it may be, is irregular. And so
yeah,
that question comes up a lot. Do I budget if I think I'm gonna make money that like what if I don't, and what if I put that
yeah,
money towards, say, my rent or my mortgage payment or a credit
yeah,
card payment, right? There are ramifications for that not happening.
yeah,
So that's what I always tell people is exactly what you said. Until things are signed on the dotted line, and honestly, even then, until the money is in your bank account, like within your
yep,
possession, at
yep,
least that's my personal rule of thumb. Because
yeah,
who knows, like your bank could blow up overnight, right? Small chance of it happening,
yeah,
but
yep.
um, still,
No,
you get the point.
definitely.
But yeah,
Yeah,
that
it's
that
it's definitely
go ahead.
it was so simple. It's like you get paid, whatever how much a month, and you typically spend this much a month, and that was really easy. So I just try to make sure I have at least the minimum payments done every month, and I always expect nothing to come in. So I'm budgeting for making zero a month, um,
Yeah,
and then that way I'm safe. And then obviously the actual numbers and then the projected numbers.
yeah,
So I just as long as I'm safe, I'm happy. Um,
good. And then
and
the second part to that question is what happens when you have those windfalls,
Yeah.
when you get those big commission checks. I've never gotten, I think the biggest I've gotten once is like a couple grand. I'd imagine in real
Hmm.
estate you may have topped that. So what do you
Yeah.
do, say on the 7th of the month, you look at your bank account and you have a couple extra zeros or whatever it may be? What's your
Yeah.
move?
Yeah. Well, what I think honestly the best thing is there's a couple things that I do. I like the re transfers of money to my saving account because I try to keep my checking and savings at two different banks.
Hmm.
Because if I can see those numbers, then I can think, oh, I can spend that. And I think a lot of people do that because they
Right.
look at their bank account, they got whatever $5,000, $10,000, like, oh, I can go buy, a brand new car or, a couple watches or whatever.
Yeah, it's like that. People say that cash burns a hole in their pocket for the same reason.
Exactly.
Like if you carry $100 bills around, you won't
Exactly.
go home at the end of the night with them still in your wallet. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Tell me honestly. Uh, I have credit cards. Obviously, I'm trying to build my credit,
right.
but I try not to carry cash and I try to use my debit card as much as I can. But I do like the benefits of having, the credit card bonuses when you sign up for them. Those are cool. But only if you can
Hmm.
afford them and know you can afford them.
There we go.
Uh,
I like the way you're talking. Responsible credit.
Before you even do anything, oh my gosh, it drives me crazy when people just don't even think about when they spend money on credit cards because they think, they can afford it because
Yeah.
it's the bank's money, but it's not.
Or something that I see a lot too is people mismanage their money to the point that they end up having to put important stuff on their credit cards. Like they spent so much money going out that month that by the time their rent bill comes up, it's like, "Oh shoot, I don't have that in my bank account right now.
Yeah, yeah,
Might as well put it on the credit." That's one of the big traps too. Is like it's a piece of
yeah.
plastic that feels like free money, but it's not. It's
Oh yeah, it definitely does.
I mean, it's free money for the
Feels
people
like it.
like us who use it right and get that cash back and
Right,
those
right,
mileage points. But
exactly.
yeah, that's funny. So in your career, obviously the 2020 has been one heck of a year for all of
Oh
us.
yeah,
Starting off, and we are now in the second quarter of it, and
amazingly.
yeah, right, man, just pulling through, and we're doing well, I would say.
Yep.
What are some of your goals for 2020? And then on top of that, for this year, what are concrete goals that you like to have accomplished? It can be personal or it can be business. And then on top of that, what are some of your more long-term goals that you would like to see accomplished down maybe 5, 10, even 20 years? Some of the bigger things that motivate you and are part of the reasons why you do what you do. Sorry, bud.
2020, for business, my goal was 12 transactions done. Um, and so far, I'm on my third one. It's actually gotten a lot busier, believe it or not, through this time, which I still doesn't make sense to me. But anyways, um, 2020 was projected to be my best year yet, and I'm actually, really excited about it. Still getting things done,
Right on.
still selling houses and stuff. So I had a lot more in the pipeline this year than I've ever had. So it's really cool to see, and I believe I'm going to hit those numbers because this has actually helped me a little bit, and I think some of them are actually scared because of this. So by the
Right.
end of the year, I'm going to hit that number. I'll
Hmm.
make sure I'll get it done. That's how I see it.
Good for you.
And the personal, I'm huge on physical and mental health. As long as I'm healthy, you know, no, is there any obvious inflammation or, acne coming out because you're stressed or any of this stuff? I want
Right.
to make sure, I'm eating right, training right, getting my steps in, not overeating. Um, those are a lot of personal goals I have for myself. Because at the end of the day, if we don't have our body, our physical body, we don't have anything. Because we're not going to be here. So that's number one for me for personal goals.
Hmm.
But at the end of the year, I my projections for um, commission would be over 100 grand. Was my main goal.
Right on,
So
right on.
that's uh that's my goal for this year.
Awesome, and good for you. For you, you still feel like you're somewhat on track. I mean, I'm sure
Yeah.
things are slowing down right now, um,
Yes.
and that's just a reality that most of us are facing. But as things pick up, you feel like you'll be on track to hit that.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely am because I'm
Nice.
getting actually somehow I'm getting a lot more calls in and a lot more people, perking up. Um, some people think this might help them, so it's definitely a weird time for sure though.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but what was the next question?
The second part was 2020. First part 2020 goals. Second part, what are your more long term, like 5, 10, 20 year goals that
Okay.
motivate you? What are your long term goals? That's the short version.
Okay. So I love long-term goals because that always, sets my mind on what I'm aiming for every day.
Right.
Because we have the end of the year goals, but those can always change on circumstances like what we're happening right now. Um, Long term, let's say 5 years, I want to have, in real estate, you can have teams and people working under you. So by then, I want to have at least, 4 or 5 people working under me,
Okay.
and, producing at a high rate. And 10 years, I want it to be, I want to have a pretty big team, around 25 people. Um, and these are all going to be, high producing people
Yep.
that are all going to follow my systems and everything. And eventually, maybe a little further than 10 years, I'm going to step back from it a little bit and be more of the CEO than anything, and just have, all the moving parts do their thing. And, I'm the brand, I'm the, systems and
Right.
everything. That's
It'll
why I
be
get paid.
Brandon Koehne Realty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's those are some big ones. Also, I think by tenure, this is more realistic. Is that I want to have multiple other businesses that are actually correlated to real estate, like a moving company, like a roofing company,
Oh yeah.
contracting company. This way, I can offer different services to my clients that no other realtor can. And I
Right.
think this is huge because I can offer discounts at that point. And also, I
Yeah.
can make money by working on everyone else's houses while I'm also making money in real estate. So I think, I
That's
don't have
genius.
the exact businesses, but those ones I said, I do want to have those.
Yeah. Have you thought about 3D imaging at all?
It's pretty common actually nowadays. Personally, owning a business doing that, I don't know about that. I've never actually thought about that. Maybe.
Yeah, I,
But
I don't know
there's
a
a
whole lot about it except you and I both watch Meet Kevin on YouTube. He's a big realtor if anyone's not
yeah.
familiar with them. But I'm pretty sure he might have his own business or he's talked about starting your own business with it. He has experience at least like with the software and the camera that you need. And he said it's like a
Oh
pretty
yeah.
cheap investment and then you literally just like you can do a whole property in like 20 30 minutes. You just go put the camera in different places, click a button,
Yeah.
and then walk out and then just
Yeah.
render the whole thing and make sure the files get sent to the right people, and that's all you're doing as a business is, and is profitable because it's highly needed as you know in real estate. So
Yeah. No, and I haven't seen that. And that's actually really funny you bring up that point because right now, most houses we can't even go into because if the
right,
owner still lives there, we can't go legally. We can't go in there. Vacant houses we can still go in one at a time,
right,
but the 3D imaging is huge because that lowers our effect of people going in and out of homes, lowers the risk of everyone getting sick, and it's
right.
huge. It's huge, huge right now. So I'm actually going to look into that right after this. Thanks for letting me know.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Uh,
I mean, I inadvertently, I wasn't even considering the short term. I was thinking more just as a long term because you're talking about
oh, I
branching out
know,
and
but
growing
that's
your. Hey, well, you're welcome. I
yeah,
won't fight it. Um, cool, man. That is awesome. I totally see the direction that you're going with real estate. I think it's really admirable, and I know that not only is it possible, but it's profitable. So
Yeah,
good for you. And I know that you have, just by the conversations we've had, you have the grit and the right mentality, that growth mentality, um, to be able to make that possible. Like
thank
one of
you.
my dad's good friends from college went that route, started just as a real estate
Mm.
agent, then created his own agency, and bit by bit, like built his own brand. And I think it was 48, 49, 50, somewhere around there, where he was like at that 3 to 5 hour a week stage of just like making
Yep,
sure things are, you know what I mean? So
yep, exactly.
it's definitely possible, and that's
Yep,
super cool, man. Um,
yeah. Yeah,
what?
and one thing I just want to say, it's it's all about growth every single day. You wake up, you don't want to be in the same place that you were yesterday. So every day I wake up, I always try to do something a little more than I've done before. And I think it's all about growth, all about expansion, always learning, as you know, and always growing. Because if you're not growing, you're dying.
Yeah,
So that's huge for me.
definitely, man. I completely agree with you. And one thought that I had a while back that was kind of profound, that I don't think a lot of people think about, and it could have just been me being silly, but you it's definitely true what you're saying with your time and with your personal development. But if you think about it with your money too, if you like say you have just cash in your mattress, like is I'm not sure if it's common practice, but I've heard people joke about it. You know what I mean, right? And
Yeah,
you
yeah,
keep say you or you let's say you have tons of money, like 20,000 of cash in a shoebox that you keep in your closet for 20 years, right? That
yeah.
money isn't staying the same in value. It's
No,
like due to inflation, it's not that $20,000 from 20 years ago is not gonna buy nearly as much.
exactly.
It's
Yeah,
crazy to think about that. And so if your
yeah,
money isn't working for you at the rate of inflation, then you are slowly losing it. And you
exactly.
have to peak inflation to be able to have your money actually work for you and get a return. Crazy concept. Um,
Yeah.
but
No, and right now it's definitely an interesting time to bring up inflation because
oh yeah,
with the government printing $2 trillion, that's gonna change a lot.
oh
Um,
yeah.
I don't know, but
Yeah, I don't want to
yeah,
dip too much into that, but I've seen, like, come on, unlimited quantitative easing. It it's yeah,
yeah,
it's I don't
yeah,
think just inflate. It's going to be hyper. Is at least my
yeah,
opinion, but
yeah,
that could be a whole other hour long conversation,
yeah, yeah.
to
That's a
be
different time.
honest. Um, but that's cool, man. I love your goals, and I love the mindset and where you're at just in your career. You're really locked and loaded, and I like you're not even letting this phase you now for your short-term goals for your 2020. You're
Hmm.
like, you know what, I'm still gonna hit these, and then even if things change, like you said, things that we can't control, even if they change, that isn't gonna sway the overall direction that you're going in
Yeah,
terms of the long-term goals, like building that agency that you talk about,
yeah,
and starting to offer those more like ancillary products and stuff like that. So I think that's beautiful. And you mentioned part of that you mentioned was that you wanted to like take a step back a bit in terms of like, I mean this kind of circles back to the whole like relationship between time and money thing. Like you want to kind of step back and have it
yep.
more automated, right? Like what does that transition look like for you? At least how have you pictured it from going from full time Monday through Friday running that agency, being in the office, to being like somewhat retired? Where what is it? Or do you just want to fully okay? I'm one day I'm done. What does that look like for you?
Yeah. So I don't think one day I'll ever be done, just because that's kind of who I am.
Nice.
I spend more time with my family, because I'm gonna have my goal in life is to have a wife and kids, and I think you know love and family is very very important for me.
Yeah.
Uh,
So you want
and
to be able to separate
things,
and spend your time in the areas of your life that bring you the most joy, with spending time with family and
Exactly.
your
Yeah.
wife at the time. And yeah, I definitely I completely agree with you. That's the way I see it being too. Is like, not, I don't see retiring as being not working anymore.
Hmm.
I see retiring as making working an option as opposed to a necessity. You know,
Exactly. I completely agree.
because at the end of the day, like, the game is, at least this is my opinion. I think you agree. The game is to find something that you're passionate about and that you love doing, right?
Yep.
But it's more than that too. You have to be somewhat good at it or able to learn how to get good at it. You know,
Yeah.
you don't have to start off a prodigy. And there also has to be some sort of like economic opportunity, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
actually have to be able to make money there somewhere. But like, that's kind of the thing that we're trying to do right now. And like, you at 22,
Hmm.
you've had it figured out for coming on 4 years already. This is what you're doing, you know. And that, I think that is so awesome. Yeah, awesome, man. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you so much for coming onto the podcast today. I had a blast talking with you. I'm sure that the listeners to this are gonna have fun hearing our conversation too. Lots of gold nuggets there. So thank you very much for coming on. If anyone wants to get a hold of you or check you out anymore, what's a good place to find you?
Yeah. So thank you so much again for having me on. Super excited for you. It's going to take off, and I really appreciate it. So I'm actually thinking about starting a podcast. So I think you're going to be my first guest on there.
Oh, no
But
way.
for people to find me, I'm huge on Instagram, huge on LinkedIn. My name is Brandon Koehne. Last name's Koehne. And on Instagram, my handle is Brandon Koehne Real Estate, and that's where you can find me. You can always message me there if you have any questions. But look soon to a podcast coming out one of these days.
Awesome. And we'll make sure to get all your contact information in the description of this podcast. You can check it out on Anchor. We're putting it out on YouTube, and you will see it Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Brandon, thank you so much, and until next time.